Corey from DCRainmaker.com here. Today we've got Wahoo's newest device, the Wahoo Kickr Climb. Now this big tower you see over here, and what this does is it'll automatically raise and lower the front of the bike to match gradient in an application like Zwift. So in this case it can go down to negative 10% and positive 20%. So you can see that here if I override it manually, I can go down all the way to the bottom there, and I can go all the way back up here to 20%, so it's way up there. And if I go back down again, I'll just kind of settle it out in the middle there. And now you notice I did that with this remote control right there. This remote is wired to the Climb, and then that in turn also talks wirelessly to the Kickr in the back there. And the reason they're doing it that way as opposed to going from the Climb to the application like Zwift is that now Zwift doesn't have to know anything different. Instead, the Kickr simply takes the grade information they've already received from Zwift that's been working for years now and transmits it onto the Climb, and then from there it goes up and down. What's cool about that is it's not just Zwift then, it's other applications. So apps like Kinomap and Sufferfest can take advantage of this, and any other app that wants to that already has Kickr control, which is pretty much every app out there today, can utilize the Climb. So to show you how this works, I'm going to jump on the bike and just kind of go up and down a little bit on these rollers on Zwift right there. Now the bike isn't quite my size and the pedals don't quite match the cleats either, but that's all right, doesn't really matter. You can see here as I roll through it, what's going to happen is it'll automatically start going. Now I go back into automatic mode there. It'll automatically start going up and down. You can see these little bit changes right there. There we go again, and down again. Now it's doing it in kind of like these 1 second increments. Wahoo says they're still working on smoothing a bit, so by the time you get to the product shipping out later on this year, it'll be a bit smoother as opposed to being kind of this up and down. But you can see it's moving pretty quick. I mean, the entire system moves actually really darn quick. Now at the moment the remote is in automatic mode, which means that Zwift is taking control of it. But if for some reason I wanted to go ahead and override that, maybe the incline's too high or whatever the case may be, I can use this remote right here, and as soon as I change the gradient, it goes into manual mode and stays there. So I could right now go ahead all the way up to the top to 20%. And now when I do that, it's gonna get really hard to pedal because of the fact that back here on the Kickr, it's also changed the gradient to 20%. Because remember, the Kickr is actually controlling the gradient. It's not just this going up and down. So when I did that, in this particular chainring combination, the big ring up the front, I really can't pedal anymore. So all the way back down again. And there we go, good to go. And I can go back into automatic mode by simply tapping this middle button. And then the next time Zwift sends a gradient command, which is almost constantly, it'll go ahead and reset itself and I'm back following the train again. Okay, so what's the catch with it? Well, there's really basically two catches. First is the price, which is $5.99 US, and I'll put the rest of the prices on the screen there. So it's definitely not cheap. Wahoo says this isn't something there's a lot of room for profit on because the parts in there and making sure it's safe as well. So lots of little things like you'll notice these slats there, keep it so you can't stick your fingers in there and be able to deal with the forces of your bike up and down, ensuring that's again safe for riders of all sorts of weights. The other catch is that it's only compatible with the new Kickr 2017 edition and the 2017 Snap, which came out earlier this summer. That means that if you already have a Kickr out there today, you're kind of hosed. And the reason for that is more technical than it is Wahoo wanting you to go ahead and buy a new Kickr trainer. If you look at the Kickr, there's two things that are kind of contributing to that. The main one is that when you put your bike on here, your quick release will tighten onto it, and on an older Kickr, that'll lock in place in front of the cassette here. Whereas on the newer Kickr, it goes ahead and you use this small little piece right here, and that prevents the bike from basically torquing onto the cassette, so allows it to move up and down. Else you're basically driving your dropout against the Kickr, just rubbing it hard, and that would be a bad thing over time. So it's really more of a hardware issue than it is anything else. And the same is also true on the backside here. There's a bit more space now for disc brakes, so you'll see this is kind of cut out, where in the past it used to be a bit more flat. So if you went down in gradients, for example, or up, you could have the inside of that disc brake setup drive against the Kickr, and again, that would also be bad. Wahoo did try to look at ways to get around that in terms of some sort of engineering fix to swap out the components of the older Kickrs, but they said there really wasn't any way they could do that that made sense because of the fact that it is such a core component across the middle there. So when will this ship? The current plan is later this year, holiday season, so probably November, December. There's not a lot of units out there. In fact, this is really one of the only functional ones here at Eurobike to demonstrate on. So they're still definitely in the beta phase, which is why it's not going to ship, next week or something like that. Whereas the Kickr 3, which was also announced today, is shipping immediately, just like the Kickr Snap is also shipping immediately. That came out earlier this summer. You can check out both those posts, by the way, the Kickr 3 or Kickr 2017, whatever you want to call it, down in the description there. Not a lot of change there, some minor like compatibility type stuff, whereas the Kickr Snap actually had more changes, and that post is also down in the link there as well. Because it is a Eurobike, there are tons of new products on the docket, so you'll definitely want to hit the subscribe button down there, as well as a like button if you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for lots of new gadgets over the next couple days. Have a good one.